Okay, lesson 2, part 2. We promised you as we left last time the 7 steps to accomplishment. Now these steps are important if you're a beginner or if you're an advanced student. Part of these, some of these steps will teach you how to feel the rhythm and all that. So don't skip a step even though you may already be on number 6 or number 7 in your accomplishment. Go back and work through these and make sure you go step by step. So step 1 was what we were doing on When I See the Blood. We were just chording a syllable one hand at a time. Christ, our Redeemer, died on the cross, just one hand at a time, and then add the second hand. Christ, our Redeemer, and give me a chord for each syllable on the cross. That's what step 1 means. Died for the sinner, paid all his due. Now I realize that doesn't sound real good, but it's going to get better with each step. But accomplish that step before you go on to step 2. But when you finish that, here's what you're going to do on step 2. Chord with the right hand, like C, E, G, and play alternating bass with the left hand. By alternating bass, I mean you hit a C with your left hand in the bass section. If we could get the keyboard back up there. Okay, you hit the C bass and then you'll have a C chord. So every other time, like if it's 4/4 time, you're going to be doing this. Now, you go down to the 5 of the chord. What is the 5 of the C chord? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So instead of going up to G, you go down to G. If you'll use these 2 fingers right here, then you'll have just enough room to get it all in. So here we go. Christ, our Redeemer. So you hit a bass, chord, alternating bass, chord, bass, chord, bass, chord. This gives you the feel of the rhythm. Christ, our Redeemer, died on the back to C. G. Now what's the 5 of G? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's D. So instead of going up to D, you go down to D. So you do the 1 and the 5 with the left hand. Died for the sinner, paid all his due. So that's the way you do step 2, alternating bass. Now, step 3 is play the melody with the right hand. This goes back to those intervals that we talked about in lesson 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On this song, you start on interval number 5 in the C scale. Now, does the next note go up or down? Christ our... See, it goes up. Re, and then back down, Redeemer, and then down a third. Okay, you can do that by ear, or you can play the top note that's written in your hymnal. And with the left hand, you're just playing chords. This is step 3. Ready to stop? Now we're going to go to step 4. Step 4 says play melody with right hand and alternating bass and chords with the left. Remember what you did in step 2? Now you're going to do all that in step 4 with one hand. A while ago we were doing it with both hands. Now we're going to do all that with one hand. And we need to show you on the keyboard here we're going to play a bass with the left hand. We're coming to it. Here we go. Okay, a bass with the left hand and then a bass chord. An alternating bass, which is the G in this case, and another C chord. C bass, C chord. G bass, C chord. C bass, C chord, G bass. Then when we go to F, we're going to go F and a chord, and then we go right back to C. When we go to G, so that's what you do with the left hand. Here's what you do with the right hand. Play the melody just like you did in step 3. Sounding better, isn't it? When I start trying to think, I really mess it up. Because after you do this a while, you do it subconsciously or some way. You don't think. You don't have to. You train your hands and they'll do what your mind tells them to do without you consciously thinking. Now you may notice I'm doing some inversions. We need to talk about that next so you'll understand. As long as I have C, E, G, that's a C chord no matter how I stack it up. F, C, G, C, F, C. Okay? Now that was step number 4. In step 5, it's basically the same thing we just did, only we're going to do octaves in the right hand. It says play. I need to move that up. Play melody with, where are we? 6. Play melody in octaves. No, we're on number 5. Play melody in octaves with the right hand. Alternating bass and chords with the left. Okay, here we go. What is an octave? It's the same, 2 notes of the same name, 8 degrees apart. So we're going to start on G, 2 G's in the right hand. Bass, chord, bass, chord, bass, chord. It sounds better, doesn't it? That's step 5. Now, on step 6, it says for us to play the melody in octaves just like we did. Now we're going to add the notes of the chord between the octaves. Okay, if I could show you that. What is the C chord? How do you spell it? It's spelled C, E, G. So G is my octave, and so I need a C and an E in between for it to sound like a full, rich chord. Here we go. Now F, F-A-C. See why you need to know chord spelling? C, E, G. G, B, D. 6 still. We're doing the octave with the right hand. Play melody and octaves, adding notes of the chord between the 2 melody notes. Okay? So if we have a C, E, G chord, that's a C chord. That's how you spell a C chord, C, E, G. Then we already have a G in our melody here, and we need what else to go to make a C chord? C and E, don't we? So here we go. Here's the C chord. Spell it out as you go, and that's all I'm thinking is C, E, G right here. Now I'm going to go F, A, C. Look, I've got the notes of the chord. I have a C, an F, and another A. I'm playing in octaves, putting the chord in between. C, E, G. Now G, B, D. See, that sounds a lot more full and rich. F, A, C. Okay, we won't continue. Let's go on to step 7. We're doing the same thing in step 7 that we did in step 6. But then we need to add some passing tones. Let me show you what a passing tone is. We can have the keyboard back down here. Passing tones is like if you're going from one note in the melody goes from, say it goes from G up to C. That's the melody note. Well, a passing tone is just some notes in between there. They're not part of the chord. Here's the A and the B and the C. G, A, B, C. That's just not part of the chord, but it's passing tones that you can use if you're going from one member of the chord to another member of the chord. We're in C, so here's G, that's a member of the C chord. Here's C, that's a member of the C chord, but A and B is not. So here we go. We just go through A and B to get there, and we call those passing tones, and that's how you do runs. Let's change songs a minute, and I'll show you a run on in the key of C. There is a fountain. You just hit every note. You know, the song goes, there is, like that. Well, instead of playing that like that, just play every note. Isn't that pretty? See, these are passing tones. Did you see those passing tones? I went, drawn from Emmanuel's veins. Okay, I ended up on a D, a melody note. Now my passing tones, I'm going to go down here to G and hit every note for 2 octaves to the next G. And sinners plunge, just like that. Okay, look at the left hand. See those passing tones? I'm in F, F, A, C. I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right up the scale. Those are passing tones. Here's some more in the right hand now. See, I just hit every note of the scale. Here's some more kinds of passing tones. You can outline a chord. I'm in F now. See, I'm outlining those chords. Okay, let's go back to When I See the Blood so we can see how you're going to do it in step 7. Passing tones. I hope you can see what I was doing there so you can do it. Okay, I did something right there with my left hand. This may be a little advanced for some of you, but I want to stop there and catch that rolling chord. You know your numbers now, 1, 3, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what I did was I played the 1, the 5, and with just a flip of the wrist, I came up in the next octave and got the 3. What is the 1? It's C. The 5 is G. The 3 was E, but we're going to skip it down here and put it up here. Now, you don't want to overuse that, but that gives you some variety rather than just bonk, bonk, you know. But that gives you a little different feel. So many things you can do by just knowing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, knowing where to play chords. Where do you play chords? What degree of the scale do you make your chords on? Any degree of the scale. But the main chords are on 1, 4, and 5. Well, how do you know what notes are in that key? You play a scale first. How do you play a scale? you put the half steps between 3 and 4 and 7 and 8, and you have a scale. Then you build chords on 1, 4, and 5, and you've got a song. And that's what we just did. So one thing we promised there was arpeggios on step 7. That's what I did at the end. That little thing right there was an arpeggio. And all it is C, E, G, 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 all the way from one end to the other. Boy, it makes me sound like I'm smart, but I'm just doing 3 notes. See? Okay, that's an arpeggio. You can buy books of arpeggios. There's many different ways to do arpeggios, and they really add a lot to your playing. I don't do as many as I should. Like I said, we all have room for improvement, and I have a lot of room. You'll pass me really fast if you'll just learn the system here, because it's a system. Okay? Now, we promised to talk about inversions in the last session we had. And we're still on lesson 2. Let's get this. Okay, that's under the heading to play your first song. It should play a scale in the key of C. We've already done that. Play a chord progression. Now you understand what that is. It's 1, 4, 1, 5, 1. In C, what does this mean? It means C. Count up 4 and you find an F. Go back to C, count up 5, and you find a G, and then go back to C. That's really simple. That's root position. When you stack it up, the 1, the 3, and the 5. When you put the 1 on the bottom, the 3 in the middle, and the 5 on top, that's called root position. And we'll go to the chord chart in a minute, and you'll see that a little clearer. But there's another one, first inversion and second inversion, and when we play these first step, especially step 1. Step 1 said, in fact, it said, what did it say? It said to learn these inversions. No, this is where it says, learn these inversions. Root position is in the 1 chord. When you get to the 4 chord, do the second inversion. Here's why. It's the smoothest change you can make. And if you're just learning the keyboard, can I see the keyboard a minute? If you're just learning the keyboard, then you can change quickly without it. See, if you jump from C to F, back to C, and then all the way up to G, that's choppy. That's real choppy. Christ our Redeemer died on the... That's real choppy. But you can get an F without jumping all the way up to here. And you can get a G without jumping all the way up to here. And it's very smooth. All you do to make an F chord, when you have a C, put your hand on C, E, G. Now, when you have that C chord, I need to keep the keyboard there for just a few minutes. When you have the C, E, G, okay, we'll wait just a minute till we get our keyboard set up. All right. When you have C, E, G, that's root position, because the 1's on the bottom, the 3's in the middle, and the 5's on top. Now, if you want to go to a 4 chord, how do you spell a 4 chord in the key of C? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's F. All right? F-A-C is spelled F-A-C. That's the F chord, I mean. Okay? But if I want to go to F from C, I don't have to do that. Here's all I do is move the 2 top fingers. By top, I mean the high end of the piano. Okay, here's my 2 top fingers, E and G, are the ones I have on top. That's the notes I have on the top of the chord. The bottom of the chord has a C. Now, I'm going to go to F, and I need 3 letters. I need F, A, and C. Well, I already have C right here with my thumb. So I hold that. I move the 2 top fingers just up 1 degree of the scale. And look what I have. C, F, and A. So I've made an F chord. I've made a 4 chord by just moving 2 fingers. I still have F, A, and C down here. See? And that's a lot smoother to change from C to F. So easy, and you just need to do that over and over and over till it just comes natural to do it. Now, when we're going to change to a 5 chord, here's what we do. Move the 2 bottom fingers down. What is a 5 chord in the key of G? Key of C, excuse me. We're in key of C. What's a 5 chord? You count up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so we know it's a G. All right, let's go back to root position in C. Now, what do we need for G? How do you spell a G chord? G, B, D. And if you memorize them, it's G, B, D. Real fast, G, B, D. Okay, so we need a G, a B, and a D. Okay, what's the common denominator between the chord C and the chord G? Well, we have C, E. We already have the G right here, don't we? So we hold that, and we move the 2 bottom fingers down to B and D. Just move that back and forth till it's easy. And that's your inversion. Root position 1 chord, C, E, G. Second inversion 4 chord, C, F, A. It still spells F-A-C, and you still have F-A-C in your mind, but just because you have the C on the bottom does not change the chord. See, you could play an F chord all the way up and down there, and nobody would know that because you don't change chords. That's all F. Ooh, I don't want to go that low. It's all F chords. So here we go. We're in C. We just move these 2 top fingers up. We've got F. Move them back to C. Move the 2 bottom fingers down. We've got G. So we can play the whole song right there without hardly moving our hands. Let's try a different song. I'm satisfied with just a cottage below, a little silver. Isn't that easy? Of course, that's step 1, but that's the inversions you use. And when you get into all the other steps, you use all the inversions. You don't care where you start, as long as you got those 3 letters, C, E, G, F, A, C, or G, B, D. You can play them all over the keyboard. That's why you can promise somebody they can play all over the keyboard rather than just right in the middle, because of the notes are repeated over and over and over again. So if you learn those inversions, so it'll be a smooth transition. Now I think we need to go to the chord chart next so you'll understand more about what we are doing with inversions. Let me find my chord chart. Now in your book you have a blank chord chart, and I challenge you. You also have one that's filled in, but I challenge you not to use that to fill out the blank one, because this will help you if you'll think this through. And I put the one in there that's already filled in so that you can check your work to make sure you have them right. You want them right. But let's look at this chord chart and see how it works. You may have seen a chord chart something like this before. Over here we have, well, I don't have it over far enough. Okay. Here we go. Here we have the name of the key. Over here we have how many sharps or flats that key has. And over here we have the name of the sharps or flats that's in that key. Of course, you'd find that out if you played a scale. You'd find that out without looking at the chart. But we've got it on the chart to make it easier. Now, these are major chords. These first 3 here are major chords. Here's root position. That's what we've been talking about. 1, 3, and 5. When you stack it up like that, that's root position. So we go down here and we look at C. That's the one we've been working with so far. And we want 1, 3, and 5 in C. What is 1, 3, 5 in C? Well, the 1 is C, the tonic of the chord. The 3, C, D, E, right? So it's E. And what's the 5th? It just says every other note. So it's C, E, G. I'm not going to give all these away. I'm going to give C away to you, and I want you to work out the rest of them, because this will help you to get in your mind what you're doing. Now, for a first inversion, you need the 3 on the bottom, the 5 in the middle, and the 1 on top. So what difference does it make? It's still C, E, G. If you put the 3 on the bottom, it's E. If you put the 5 in the middle, it's G. If you put the 1 on top, here's the 1, it's C. Get it? All right, now second inversion. The 5 on the bottom, the 1 in the middle, and the 3 on top. That's very simple. What is the 5? It's G. What's the 1? It's C. What's the 3? It's E. See, you just go back over here to the root position and look and see what it said to do. Okay, so here's C, E, G, how it sounds. Here's E, G, C, and here's G, C, E. It's all the same chord. It's just turned around. It's inverted. That's why they're called inverted chords. So this is first inversion. This is second inversion, C chord. Now, if we're going to go on a cross, which we are, we need to see that the minor chords, to make a minor out of a major, all you do is lower the third degree. What is the third degree in the key of C? E. See, the 1 in the middle is the third, and it's E. Okay, this little flat here doesn't mean you're going to flat all these in this line, this column here, but it means to lower the third degree a half a step. That means the very next key, doesn't it? So C, E, flat, G is a minor chord. Here's what a major C sounds like. But you lower that third. Maybe we should show this on the keyboard. Here's C, E, G. C major. Lower this E, third degree, a half a step. And you have C minor. That's how simple it is. Now, while we're still at the keyboard, let's talk about the diminished chord. It's the next one. You can look on your chord chart without me turning to it. The next one, let's keep the keyboard a minute. And the next one is a diminished chord. And it says to lower the third and the fifth. So here's the root position. Lower the third and lower the fifth. And there's your diminished. C diminished. If you see a C on the music with a little bitty 0 by it, that's Texas talk for small, little bitty. Little bitty 0 by it, that means a C diminished. Okay. So let's go back to our chord chart now. We have C, E flat, and G flat. C, E flat, G flat. That's the 1. And the third is lowered a half a step, and the fifth is lowered a half a step. Okay? Now, then the augmented chord. You raise the fifth degree. So we know we're going to have C, E, G. What's the fifth degree? It's G. So you just raise it a half a step, and that's C augmented. Very pretty chord. When you play that one, you're going to go to a 4 chord after that. So anyway, C, E, and raise the fifth, you've got a C augmented. If you see a little plus sign, like this, beside a C in your music, you know that's a C augmented chord, and they're beautiful. Okay, a 6th chord now. 6th, not 6, but 6th chord. You just have 1, 3, 5 and add the 6th degree of the scale to it. So we have C, E, G. We know that already. We don't have to figure that out. What comes after G? I thought you'd forget your alphabet. A. So a C6 chord is the jazz chord. We don't call it that in church, but we use it sometime in church. It's a pretty chord if you use it right. You can overuse those for sure, but they're pretty sometimes. All right, now we get to the dominant 7 chord, the last one in the column. Dominant 7th chord. Now this is not built on the 7th degree of the scale. It just means you add to the 1, 3, 5 chord, you add a lowered 7th degree. So here we have C, E, G, and what's the 7th degree of the C scale? You just count up on your fingers if you need to and see. Oh, and actually it's the note just before the 8. So if C's 8, what's 7? That's right, it's B. Now, but this says we have to lower that 7th degree of the scale. So we did that, a flat, and we've lowered it. So that's the way you do the whole chord chart. Now, I'm going to put the one in here that's filled in quickly so we can save some time, because you can figure all those out now yourself and do all 7 sharps, 7 flats in the key of C. There's 15 key signatures, 15 different keys you can play in. But for our purposes in learning inversions like we were a while ago, we were in C and we said do the one chord in root position. So here we go. We're going to circle the one we're going to use, C, E, G. We said use the 4 chord in first inversion. And notice how this chord chart works. If C is 1, you look down to find the 4 chord, and you look up to find the 5 chord. And it works all up and down this chart like that. If C is 1, F is 4, and then you look up from C to find the 5 chord, which is G. Okay, so we're going to use the root position C, C, E, G. But when we go to the 4 chord, we're going to say C, F, A, which means just raise up the E to the F and raise the G to the A. See, that's what I mean by the 2 top fingers. Okay, then go back to C, and we're going to use first inversion on G, which means just hold the G, that's the common denominator, and move the E down to D, and the C down to B. Move the 2 bottom fingers down one, and you've got a G chord. First inversion G chord. Okay. 4 chord F, my 5 chord G, and these are the inversions. C in root position, 1 chord in root position, 4 chord in second inversion, back to the C, E, G root position, and then do the 5 chord in first inversion. And that's what we were doing. If we can go to the keyboard for just a minute, is that going to be possible? Show you what we were doing. Keyboard coming up. And you need to do that until you can do it easily. C, root position, F, second inversion, back to C, root position, G, first inversion, back to C. And that's the easiest transition. If you're a beginner, that's the easiest reach you can do. And especially if you're playing an organ, that's the best, smoothest transition you can make. Now, to play a song in other keys, we need to learn to play in F and G and all these other keys. But at least if I can show you how to do F and G, then it won't be long till you can do all the others yourself. Here we are still on lesson 2, but it's part 3. So all of this is important. So you're still right in your place where we left off last time. Let's go to the board and look, see what we were about to do when we ran out of time on our last class. To learn to play in a new key. This is on page 7 in your book. To learn to play in a new key. The first thing you do is notice the key signature. But you know, before we start to play, we're going to learn to play in F, and then we're going to learn to play in the key of G, and that way you'll have 3 keys that you can play in to start off with. But before we do that, I think we should take test number 1. Over lesson 1, I hope you've been studying these lessons from the beginning up to now, and you should have reviewed. If you didn't, turn the tape off now and review lesson 1, because these questions, we're calling it a test, but it's really not a test. This is a learning device. That makes it sound better, doesn't it? A learning device, but you will learn as much from taking the test as you will, because we talk about it some more, and that helps you. So if you would turn to test number 1 in your book, and let's look at that. We'll come back to how to play in a new key in just a few minutes. This is a real short little test. Number 1 is for you to just name the white keys on that keyboard, I want to make sure that you've studied and that you know the names of the keys, because if you don't have a working knowledge of the names of the keys, all this other that we've been talking about is just really going to confuse you. So the first thing to do is learn the names of the keys. So of course, if you get started on the right one right here, you're going to get all of them right. Just do the white notes only. And we'll come back to that in a minute. I'm going to let you turn your tape off when we've finished reviewing this, and let you take the test, and then come back and I'll give you the answers. Define an interval. How many degrees of the scale are there? You remember what we talked about on degrees of the scale? If you need to study that, look back on lesson 1. Name the degrees of the scale. Each one has a technical name, but I only gave you technical names for the first and last. The others are just number names. Define a scale. And if I ask you to define a scale, you wouldn't define a chord, would you? So be sure you know what a scale is. And you can say it in your own words. It doesn't have to be just like it's in the book, as long as it means the same thing. All right, number 6. The first note of the scale is called the blank. And then here's one that might need some defining. What method do you use to play a scale you don't know? Well, I believe we covered that in lesson 1. You might have to rewind the tape and find that out to take this test. But I want you to get the answers right so that you'll have them on here and then study this. So define a half step and a whole step. And where are the half steps? Located in a major scale. You're never, ever, ever, ever going to forget that. I know you won't. Number 10, what is the 5th degree of the C scale? This is making a lot more sense to you now than it did when you first heard lesson 1. Number 11, what does a sharp do to a note? What does a flat do to a note? And what intervals do you look for? What intervals do you play for a chord? And number 4, describe an octave. That's pretty easy. Okay, turn the tape off now and take the test, and then come back in just a minute. We'll go through the test and get the right answers, and I want you to grade your own test and see how you did and correct it, and that way you'll have something to study. All right? Was that pretty easy? Okay. Let's go to the test and see how you did. Let me get over here to mine. All right. If you started on the first, number 1, if you started naming the notes, the very first one, if you said F there, you probably got them all right, because this is F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, and so on and so forth. So if you started right, you probably got them all right. Number 2, define an interval. What is an interval? It's the distance between two tones, or how far is it from one note to another. So you need to write that on your paper if you got it wrong. I trust you didn't. Number 3, how many degrees of the scale are there? There's 8 degrees of the scale. Number 4, name the degrees of the scale. The first degree of the scale is called the tonic. Seconds, thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, sevenths, and octaves. That's the names of the degrees of the scale. Define a scale. Well, you could say it any way you want to in your own words if it means this. It's a series of intervals within an octave made up of half steps and whole steps. A series of intervals within an octave. Do you see a picture of that as we say that? A series of intervals within an octave made up of half steps and whole steps. All right. The first note of the scale, number 6, the first note of the scale is called the tonic, of course. Number 7, what method do you use to play a scale that you don't know? This one may have tripped you up because you really need to memorize, or I don't mean memorize, I mean you really need to remember this, that those half steps and whole steps is what makes your scale. So to play a scale you don't know, you go whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. In other words, the half steps go between 3 and 4 and 7 and 8. All the others are whole step. So what method do you use? I would call that the half step, whole step method. Number 8, define a half step that's absolutely no key between. Define a whole step that's one key only between. Sometimes when people are doing these scales in our seminars, they'll try to skip 2 notes to make a whole step. That's a step and a half. So a whole step is just one key between, one note between. All right, number 9. Where are the half steps located in a major scale? I don't owe you that answer. You better know that one. Where are half steps located in a major scale? We all know between 3 and 4 and 7 and 8. Number 10, what's the 5th degree of the C scale? Well, how do you find that out? Just say C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Which one was 5? Just count on your fingers. So it's a G. C, D, E, F, G. That's up 5, isn't it? You always start at the bottom and go up. So number 11, what does a sharp do to a note? Raises it. You may have said that, but if you didn't say all this, write this down. We need to know how far it raises it. It raises it a half step. When you put a sharp on a note, that means play the next key to the right. What does a flat do to a note? It lowers it, but how far? A half step. Remember, a flat goes down and a sharp goes up. Just like a flat tire goes down, that's how you remember that. All right, number 13. What intervals do you play for a chord? You take the major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and pick out 1, 3, and 5 out of that, and you've got a chord. Number 14, describe an octave. Now, one girl in one of our seminars plays very well, and we asked her, we gave her this test. In fact, she's a professional pianist, and she thought for a minute, and I thought this was kind of funny, so I'm going to tell you about it. She said thumb to little finger, and that's kind of right. But describe an octave, it's 2 notes, not thumb to little finger. That could be anywhere, but that's the way she plays an octave, and that's the way I play an octave, so that made sense to her. But to describe an octave, it's 2 notes of the same name, 8 degrees apart, like C to C or D to D or E to E. All right? So I hope you did well on test number 1. All right, we'll go back now to learn to play in a new key. I want us to get a new song. We're not tired of When I See the Blood, but we've about worn it out. All right, if we can go back to the board. To learn to play in a new key. First thing to do is notice your key signature. Remember when we did the scales, we found out that all keys except C has sharps or flats because they have to be altered to get the half steps in their proper place. So a key signature is, we're going to study key signatures briefly a little later, but for now let me just tell you, a key signature is located by the clef sign before you get to those numbers that are there. And down here in the bass clef, there's another one. See that flat and this flat down here? That means this song is written in the key that has 1 flat. Do you remember when we did the scales? We came to a song that just had 1 flat. I mean a scale that just had 1 flat. So that scale, if you look back on page 5, you'll find out that scale was F because we had to put a B flat in it in order to get the half step between 3 and 4. So when you see 1 flat, that means the key of F. So here again, the first thing to do to learn to play in a new key is look at your key signature. The key signature in this key of F, this flat was on the 3rd line. What is the name of that 3rd line in the treble clef? Every good boy. So the 3rd line is a B. That means all the B's are flatted in the key of F. It doesn't mean this is the key of B flat. It means all the keys are flatted I mean, all the B's are flatted in the key of F. All right, so there we go. It said, look at your key signature first thing. Then, play a scale in the new key. If we could go to the keyboard a minute, we'll play a scale in the key of F. Okay, it's coming up on the screen. Thank you very much. Remember the 3 black notes, and F is right to the left of that. And that's where we start. That's our tonic because it's the first note of the F scale. Now, up to now, we've just done C scales, but now we're going to do F scales. So here we go. 1, whole step is G, whole step A. Now we need a half step because this is 1, 2, 3. So we're going to go up here to the top, that black note. That's a half step. Now 4 is a whole step. It's a C. D is 6. E is 7. And look at the half step between 7 and 8. So the F scale is F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. All right. Play a scale in the new key was what that said. The next thing it says to do, thank you, I need that keyboard back, yes. The next thing it says to do is build chords on the 1, the 4, and the 5. Where's the 1 in the key of F? It's F, of course. Lost my piano again. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's 1, 3, 5. That's an F chord. We had that chord when we played in the key of C. It was a 4 chord, wasn't it? Now it's a 1 chord because we're playing in the key of F. So the key we're playing in is our 1 chord. Key of F, 1 chord, F, A, C. Now what's our rule about going to a 4 chord? We raise the 2 top fingers up 1 degree of the scale. One of them's going to be a half a step and one's going to be a whole step. But that's irrelevant, really, because all you do is just move each finger up 1 degree of the scale, which means you're going to have F, B flat, and D. That's second inversion 4 chord, just like we did in F. You need to do that back and forth till it gets real easy. It's 1, 4, 1, 4, 1. See, it's B flat, D, and F. That's how you spell a B chord, B, D, F. If I said spell a B chord, you'd instantly say B, D, F. F, B flat, and D. It's turned around, but it's still a B flat chord. So then we go back to a 1 chord. Now where's our 5 chord? Let's count up 5 from F. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we're going to build a chord there. It's a C. Look, we've already had C. So all we had to learn to play in the key of F is 1 new chord. F, B flat, back to F. Now let's get that first inversion on the 5 chord. How did you spell the 5 chord? C, E, G. All right, we already have our C. We're going to move these 2 fingers down, and we've got the E and the G. Everything that works in C works in F. And you need to practice that chord progression over and over and over and over till that gets really easy for you. And then do it with the left hand. Okay? Then the next thing to do is play songs in that key. I picked out Lily of the Valley in the key of F for you. Now, we need to go back to the board a minute and show you this little device that a missionary fixed for me, Bill Byers. And I really appreciate it. This has been helpful. We're going to do Lily of the Valley. You can write your song title up there if you want to. And we're going to disregard the time signature and the key signature right now. Well, we can say the key signature. We've already looked at that. It's 1 flat in the key of F. Okay, right here we're going to write what the tonic chord is. What is your 1 chord in the key of F? Well, it's F. That's how simple this is. All right, so over here we got a Roman numeral 1. That means this is our 1 chord and our tonic chord. We know that it's F. And here's the position we're going to play it in. F. We're going to play the 1 chord in root position, remember? F-A-C. Now we're going to play the 4 chord in second inversion. Here's the 4 chord, subdominant. It's going to be a B flat. Let me go ahead and write this on here. I was going to use it for another key, but we'll get another one. Okay, we're going to hold that F. How do you spell a B chord? B D F. So it's not B, but it's B flat. It's still B flat D F. So we're going to find the common denominator between F and B flat. Well, what it is F. That note is in both of those chords, B D F and F-A-C. Catch it? Okay, so here's what it is. We're going to move this A that we had here. We're going to move it up to B flat. We're going to put that dot up there so you'll know that's the note to play. And we're going to move this C up to D. Now, there's your, you don't have to go to the keyboard right now, but try that on yours at home. There's your F and there's your B flat, and that's how it sounds. And that's real easy to do. Now, when you go back to F, here's how you're going to get the 5 chord. Here's your 5 chord. If B is 4, what's 5? What letter comes after B in the alphabet? It's a C. So it's a C chord. And you know how to spell a C chord, C-E-G. But we're going to do it in first inversion. So what's the common denominator between F-A-C and C-E-G? Well, it's the C, isn't it? So we hold the C at the top where we had it. We move the A, this A we had, move it down to G. Move this F that we had down to E. Now, you have C, E, G. Yeah, it's turned around, but it's still a C chord. Doesn't matter how you turn it around, as long as you have C, E, G. So here we go, F-A-C. Let me write that somewhere. F-A-C. B flat D F is how you spell your 4 chord, even though you're going to play in an inversion of it. And the 5 chord, the root position is C, E, G, and you're going to invert it also. But that's to keep your mind straight on what you're playing. Okay, now we'll go to Lily of the Valley. It's written in the key of F, as we said. Let's see, we need to stay on that a minute. All right, right there. And we're going to do step 1, just chord with one hand at a time. One chord for each syllable. Okay, it says Roman numeral 1. What is that now? F. Roman numeral 1 is F. So we know it's F-A-C. When it says 4 chord, we're going to just move 2 top fingers up 1. And we're going to go back to F, then we're going to go to C like this. Got it? I have found a friend in Jesus. He's everything to me. He's the fairest of 10,000 to my soul. Isn't that pretty singing? I don't like to sing that high. I'll show you how to play it in C in a minute. I'll try to sing it there, and you'll be glad when I put it in C. I have found a friend in Jesus. He's everything to me. He's the fairest of 10,000 to my soul. See, that's a good start to playing that song, isn't it? Okay, here's the way I would do it if I was going to go back to C. Now remember what the 1 chord is in C? C, E, G. 4 chords, F-A-C, C, E, G. And G-B-D is the 5 chord. Here we go. You'll like it better here if you have a low voice. I have found a friend in Jesus. See, that's C, E, G. Now go to F-A-C. He's everything to me. He's the fairest of 10,000 to my... You're thinking a 5 chord now in the key of C? G-B-D. So, the lily of the the 4 chord. Him alone I see. All I need to cleanse and make me fully. Back to C. See how easy it is? That's called transposing a song. It's written in F, but I need it in C. And if somebody in my church wants to sing has a low voice, and they want to sing a solo, and they want to sing this song, I put it down there in C for them. Now, for congregational singing, I play it where it's written. But if somebody needs that lowered, it's just a matter of knowing your ABCs and knowing how to count from 1 to 8. That's how easy it is to transpose that song. So I trust that you'll enjoy the key of F. There's a lot of songs in our hymnals in the key of F. Okay? In our next session, we'll try to show you how to play in G. But if you just follow these simple rules right here to learn to play in a new key, it doesn't matter what the key is. Look at your key signature and see what's sharped or flatted in that key. Play a scale in the new key. Build chords on 1, 4, and 5. Play a chord progression of 1, 4, 5, 1, 5, 1. And then you're ready to play songs in that key. Now it says here if the book does not have chords written, you can analyze those chords like I showed you in one of the previous lessons. Analyze the chord by note. You know how to spell all 7 of the letter names, chords. So analyze them by the notes that are on the lines and spaces and figure out the chords that way. Or you can learn to hear the intervals and hear the chords. And if you'll start listening, it's not that you don't have good ear, it's just that you have not been listening. So when you start listening, you can play the proper chords strictly by ear. If you can hear it, you can play it. If you'll learn these simple facts that we've been teaching you in these lessons up to now, you'll be playing all over the keyboard in a very short time. You'll be playing off the top of your head. You'll be playing from what you've heard, because if you can hear it, you can play it. Many times on the radio, we hear a song that we like, and maybe it's not even published, maybe it's not in sheet music, and everybody's looking for it. Sometimes people want to sing a song, they cannot find it on soundtrack, or they can't find it in the key that they need it in. All you have to do is hear it, and then you can play it. If you learn these simple methods that we learned: intervals, chords, and rhythm. We're still on chords. We learned about intervals. We're still on chords a little bit. But this session, I want us to learn how to hear. Now, it's not that you don't have good ear. It's that you have not been trained to listen. And it's a real simple matter to learn to hear the intervals and learn to hear the chords. And so I hope to accomplish in just a few minutes. You'll need to play the tape over and over maybe to catch it all. We'll try not to repeat too much, but we want you to listen and learn to hear intervals and chords. This is one of the big secrets to playing by ear, is hear it and play it. And you have to hear it before you can play it by ear. So let's go to the board. And in your book, I'm skipping over a little ways in your book, but this goes with chords and intervals both. It's on page 17. But it's ear training instruction. If you'll turn to page 17 at the bottom of the page, it's kind of at the end of everything, but this is where we found a place to put it. All right, the following will help you identify intervals by sound. Now, in our seminars in class, we give ear training tests, and you can do this at home. You get someone to help you, and I'll show you how to do it. In the ear training test, unison, we don't have any unisons, because unison just means 2 or more voices or instruments on the same note. And you need to learn to hear intervals, but as far as you can't, you need to hear unisons and know when 2 people or 2 instruments are on the same note, but there's not anything on the ear training test that you can do to identify a unison. So we will have seconds on ear training tests. A second is just the second note of the scale. Let's play the scale. Okay, how far is it from C to D? We're using a C scale for our purposes here. How far is it from C to D? It's a second, and so that's how a second sounds. If you were going to sing a scale, you'd go la, la, okay? The second one is the second. That's the interval of the second. It's just the second note of the scale. Really easy to hear. If someone played that and you were sitting across the room, you couldn't see the keyboard, and you were taking an ear training test, and you would write down number 2. You'd write down 2, because that's the interval of a second. The very next, the second note of the scale. And if you can hear a scale, then you can hear a second. A third is the middle note of a chord. Here's how a chord sounds. By now, you've been playing a lot of chords, and you know how they sound. 1, 3, 5. Hear that 3? That's how a third sounds. Or you could go up the scale, 1, 2, 3, and there it is. So it's a third. A fourth sounds like the first 2 notes of Here Comes the Bride. Hear that? All right. The fifth is the last note of a chord. Sing a chord, or go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or go 1, 3, 5, and there's your fifth. 1, 5. If you hear this sound, okay, a sixth sounds like the 1-6-4 NBC jingle. 1, 6, and then there's the 4. See how the 6 sounds? If you hear that, you would write down 6. Now the 7th is very easy to hear. It's a dissonant sound, kind of hurt your ear type sound. From C up to B is a 7th. And hear how it sounds? It's ugly. If you heard that on an ear training test, you would write down 7. Now the octave is what you hear when the piano tuner comes to your house. He tries to tune them all up alike. It's the same note, 8 tones higher or lower. That's an octave, and that's how it sounds. So I have an ear training test, but I don't have it out. Let's see. Let me just give you a few. Let me give you 5. Number a page from 1 to 5. Just number your page 1 to 5. Okay, and I'm going to give you a little ear training test. We usually, in our classes, we do these 20 at the time, and that's what you should do. Get someone to help you and number your page 1 through 20, and then get them to play the intervals, and you sit and write down what interval it was. And here's the way you do it. You first play a scale and get that in your mind, and then you start listening, and I'll say number 1, and I'll play the interval, and then I'll play it again, and then you write it down. Got it? Here's the scale. Here's number 1. You write down what interval you think that is. Is it a second, third, fourth, 5th, 6th, 7th, or octave? Okay, number 2. Again. Write down what interval you think that is. Number 3. Again. Write it down. Number 4. Number 5. Write down what you think number 5 is. Now let's check them and see how you did. Now the first time you take one of these with 20 on it, you may miss more than you get right. But just keep doing it until you learn to hear those sounds. Let's go through these that we just had. Number 1 was a 2. Is that what you got? Here's how it sounded. See? That's the second note of the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2. See? Okay. The next one was a 5. Excuse me. One way to do it is in your mind, not out loud, but go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There it is. See? Or sing a chord. 1, 3, 5. There it is again. 1, 5. That's how you learn to hear that 5. Okay, now, number 3 was a 6. It was the NBC jingle. NBC. That's free advertising for them, but that's a good way to remember. A 6. No matter what key you're in, it's going to sound like that. A 6, you can tell how far it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 6. Or NB. See? Okay. Number 4. Here's number 4. What'd you get? It was a 3. Because that's part of a chord. 1, 1, 3, 5. 1, 2, 3. See, it's just 3 up. So it's a 3. It's a third. Interval of a third. Number 5 was a 7. Nobody misses those. It's ugly. It doesn't sound good. See? So if you just go by that little list I gave you and practice a lot and get somebody to help you. Get somebody to play them for you and get somebody to write down what they're going to do before they do it and then have them do it and then give you the test, and about the 3rd or 4th time you do it, you'll start to get good, and then pretty soon you'll be making 100 every time you take the test. And then after that point, when you hear an interval, you'll know exactly what it is. It's a matter of getting used to listening. That's all in the world ear training is. So you train your ear by listening. When I listen to the radio, I hear the melody, I hear all the intervals that they're doing on the melody, and then I hear the chord. And so that's how come I can sit down and play what I hear. And you can do the same thing. It does not take a lot of talent. It just takes somebody to get excited and want to do it and want to glorify the Lord. Because can you see how valuable this is in your church? All right. Let's talk a minute about chords, how to hear chords. If I'm playing, I'm going to move over just a little bit. If I'm just playing chords, and I'm going to sing Amazing Grace. All right? How many chords am I going to probably have in that song? Well, I'm probably going to have 3. So I'm going to have a C. I'm going to do it in C because that's where I like it. I'm going to do it a C, and then I'll have a 4 chord. What's that? That'd be F. Is my microphone acting up? That'll be an F. And then a 5 chord is going to be a G. Back to 1. Okay, now if I'm going to sing Amazing Grace, I can hear when I don't have the right chord because it's not going to sound good. When it's time to change chords, if I don't change chords, it is not going to sound good. All right, say I change chords and I go to the wrong chord. Well, I only have one other choice. Now, I don't do this in church, but I do this in practice, see. If I go to the wrong chord, I only have one other choice. So it's a matter of getting the right chord. You only have 3 chords to start with, so how hard can it be? I'm going to sing Amazing Grace and show you what I mean now. When it's time to change chords, I'm not going to change chords, and you'll hear it. Doesn't sound good. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. See, that doesn't sound good. Can you hear where I ought to change chords? Amazing grace, how, right there's where I need to change on the word sweet. Okay, I'm going to go the wrong chord. Sweet the sound. See, that's wrong, isn't it? So that's how you know. You listen. You just listen. Amazing grace. Go to F. How sweet the, back to C, sound that saved a wretch. Go to G now. That's a 5 chord. Like me. So you learn to hear what a 5 chord sounds like, what a 4 chord sounds like, but not until you sit down and start listening. I once was lost. That's a C. Now we're going to go to F. But now I'm back to C. Found was. Now this song has an off chord in it, which is the 6th chord. But we don't have to play it if we're beginners, and we just can stay right there and see. Was blind, but go to G now. I see. By the way, that 6th chord, what is a 6 in the key of C? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. C, D, E, F, G. It's an A, isn't it? How do you spell an A chord? A, C, E. You spell an A chord, A, C, E. You spell a C chord, C, E, G. So you have 2 common denominators between C and A. So to go from C to A, all you do is move one finger. Move the G to the A, and you've got an A, C, E. I once was lost. Where is that chord? Let's see. Amazing grace, how sweet sound that saves a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. It's right here on the word blind. Was blind. All I did was move my G. Can you show the keyboard? I once was lost. So we'll go to F, but now I'm found. Now we're going to go to that A minor. How do you spell A minor? A, C, E. I already have the E and the C. So I'll move this G up to A, and I've got it. Was blind, but now I see. Oh, it's so easy. I want you to do it. Play with me one time. Very good example, but it is fun. And you can do it. Anybody can do it. Ear training. You have to start listening. Now, one little item we need to do is take test 2. That doesn't mean that I'm testing your knowledge. I'm testing whether I've taught you this material or not. So I'm testing me. I want you to review, turn off the tape and review test 2. Lesson 2, the whole thing that we did, all the parts. But on your page that says lesson 2, it's only 2 pages long. So review those 2 pages, and then we'll come right back and take test 2. Okay, if we can go to the board. I hope you stopped and studied. Okay, we're going to adjust this just a little bit. Now, thank you. Number 1, a chord is made up of intervals of. That's the first thing we had on lesson 2. Number 2, how many chords do most songs have? And name the main chords, always with Roman numerals when you're talking about chords. What are the technical names for the main chords? Remember, we studied those. Name any off chord, just one off chord. Then spell the following chords, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Spell all those chords. I hope you can do that fast. Now, what's the definition of an interval? That goes back to lesson 1, but you should still remember what the definition of an interval is. How many degrees of the scale are there? That's lesson 1, but it's important. Name the degrees of the scale. Now, here's one that you may not have understood. What is the difference in a tonic, denoted with a little Aramaic 1, and a Roman numeral 1? Think about that and answer that question. Number 11, why are there main chords built on some degrees of the scale and not others? That may require some thought, but we covered it. Number 12, what degree of the scale would you build a 2 chord on? Number 13, spell a 4 chord in the key of C. I think you've learned more than you think you have by this point. I think before you started, you might not have known this, how to spell a 4 chord in the key of C. I think you should now. Spell a 4 chord in the key of G. Now, if you play E, G, number 15, if you play E, G, and C, what is the name of that chord? Number 16 is not too clear here, but it says, place by these chords the correct symbol. What symbol did we have on our chord chart that denoted a minor, diminished, augmented, sixth, and a major 7, dominant 7 at the end? Okay, now you can turn the tape off and take that test. We'll come right back and you score your own test and see what you made and correct it. Did everybody make 100? I hope so. Let's correct your own test. You're not getting a grade on this test, I don't suppose, but you're correcting your test. This is a learning device. You're learning the material. Number 1, a chord is made up of intervals of 1, 3, and 5. Remember? Take the major scale and play 1, 3, and 5, and you've got a chord. How many chords do most songs have? The answer is 3. Name the main chords with Roman numerals. The answer is 1, Roman numeral 1, Roman numeral 4, and Roman numeral 5. What are the technical names for the main chords? Well, the 1 chord's the tonic. The 4 chord is the subdominant because it's under the dominant. And the 5 chord is the dominant. Number 5, name any off chord. Well, if you named a 2, a 3, a 6, or a 7, that's an off chord. Everything but 1, 4, and 5 is off chord. Not one of the main ones, in other words. Okay? Spell the following chords. A, C, E, B, D, F, C, E, G, D, F, A, E, G, B, F, A, C, G, B, D. You got those fast, didn't you? Sure. Number 7, what is the definition of an interval? An interval is the distance between 2 tones. How many degrees of the scale are there? There are 8. Name the degrees of the scale. Tonic is the first degree of the scale, then seconds, thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, sevenths, and the 8th one is octave. Number 10. May have tripped you up with this one. What is the difference in a tonic denoted with a little 1 and a tonic denoted by a Roman numeral 1? Well, the little 1 is talking about intervals. But the Roman numeral 1 is talking about chords. Remember, we use these kind of numbers for intervals and these kind of numbers for chords. All right, number 11. Why are there I may have got you on this one too. I get a lot of people on this one. Why are there main chords built on some degrees of the scale and not on others? Could I go to the keyboard for just a minute on that one? And let's review that. Why are there main chords built on some degrees of the scale and not on others? Because the first degree of the scale, like C, E, G, is a major chord. 2's minor, 3's minor, 4's major, 5's major, 6 is minor, 7's diminished, and you're back to 1 again. So why are there main chords built on some degrees of the scale and not on others? Because the 1, the 4, and the 5 are the only ones that fall naturally major. And so no matter what key you're playing in, the 1, the 4, and the 5 is what you get. 1, 4, 5. 1, 4, 5. No matter what key you go to, you play the 1, the 4, and the 5, and those are your main chords in any song. So the answer to that question is, why are there main chords built on some degrees of the scale and not on others? The answer is because the 1, 4, and 5 fall natural majors. Number 12, what degree of the scale would you build a 2 chord on? Now that was a trick question, but you'd be surprised how many people miss that. You build a 1 chord on the first degree of the scale, you build a 2 chord on the second degree of the scale, and it works that way with all of them. Spell a 4 chord in the key of C. Well, you say C, D, E, F. There it is, F. Spell a 4 chord in the key of G, okay? You say G, A, B, C. There it is. It's C. Did you get C? All right, number 15. If you play E, G, and C, what's the name of the chord? I hope everybody said C. Some people say that's an E chord. How do you spell an E chord? You spell an E chord, E, G, B. We don't have a B in here. We have a C. We have E, G, and C. What chord has all 3 of those letters in it? Well, it's C. C, E, G. See, that is a first inversion C chord, isn't it? Okay? So the name of the chord is C. Now, number 16, put the symbols by these. The minor is denoted with a little m, lowercase m, a diminished, a little 0, an augmented, a plus sign, a 6 is with a 6, and a 7 is with a 7. And that's the test. I hope you did well. All right, I'd like to give you an assignment because we may be running a little short on time, but you can do these by yourself. I'd like for you to go to the chord chart and finish it. All you do, let's see, we'll get the chord chart here. There it is. All you do is look up here at the top and do what it says. 1, 3, 5, 3, 5, 1, 5, 1, 3, 1, lower the 3rd degree. And notice up at the top here, an X means a double sharp. When you get up here in these 6 and 7 sharps, you're going to have some double sharps because you cannot change the name of the chord spelling. So in order, you're going to have some inharmonic tones here, and you know what that means. Okay, so an X means double sharp, and 2 flats like that means double flat. And you'll have some of those, but don't change the chord spelling, and you can look on your chord chart that's filled out to make sure you have got it correct. But it would be best for you if you'll go through these and think them all through. It'll really help you remember them when you start playing by ear. And that's one assignment. Finish the chord chart. Another assignment, finish your page of scales. Do them exactly like we did. We did C, F, and we did G. Here on B flat, start on B flat, see, and go whole, 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 half, whole, 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 half. And the scale will be correct if you do that. 1 through 8 on all 15 of these keys. Now, in church music, you will not, in the hymn book, you will not find anything past 5 flats, which is D flat. You won't find a G flat or a C flat, a song written in those keys in our regular hymn books. And in the sharp keys, you won't find any songs written in B, F sharp, or C sharp. So really, that takes 5 off of those that you won't be using out of your hymn book. Now, a lot of piano players, guitar players seem to like sharps better, but piano players seem to like to play in flats better. So here's a little formula to remember. If you want to change, for instance, 2 sharps is D, or we need back to the 2 sharps is D right here. All right. If you didn't want to play that in the key of D, all you have to do is say it's 5 flats, and you play it in D flat. 2 plus 5 equals 7, and this same formula works on all those. If you want to take a song written in the key of A and play it in A flat, use the same letter name, but you just go down a half a step for a flat. Well, then all you do is say, okay, the key of A has 3 sharps. So I'm going to equal 7, so I'll play it in 4 flats. Does that make sense? E has 4 sharps, so you play it in E flat. It's easier. Now, if you want to play it in E, that's great. But a lot of piano players like to transpose sharps to flats. And if you want to use that crutch, I don't. I like to do it myself. So, play in E flat. Okay, 4 sharps plus 3 flats equals 7. So it's going to be 3 flats that you're going to play this song in. And then these others you won't have in your hymn book. So that's the other assignment. Finish all 15 of these scales, and I hope you get them right. You'll get them right if you have the half steps in the proper place. I guarantee you will get them right. Well, here we are still on lesson 2, but it's part 3. So all of this is important. So you're still right in your place where we left off last time. Let's go to the board and see what we were about to do when we ran out of time on our last class. To learn to play in a new key. This is on page 7 in your book. To learn to play in a new key. The first thing you do is notice the key signature. But you know, before we start to play, we're going to learn to play in F, and then we're going to learn to play in the key of G, and that way you'll have 3 keys that you can play in to start off with. But before we do that, I think we should take test number 1. Over lesson 1, I hope you've been studying these lessons from the beginning up to now, and you should have reviewed. If you didn't, turn the tape off now and review lesson 1, because these questions, we're calling it a test, but it's really not a test. This is a learning device. That makes it sound better, doesn't it? A learning device, but you will learn as much from taking the test as you will, because we talk about it some more, and that helps you. So if you would turn to test number 1 in your book, and let's look at that. We'll come back to how to play in a new key in just a few minutes. This is a real short little test. Number 1 is for you to just name the white keys on that keyboard. I want to make sure that you've studied and that you know the names of the keys, because if you don't have a working knowledge of the names of the keys, all this other that we've been talking about is just really going to confuse you. So the first thing to do is learn the names of the keys. So of course, if you get started on the right one right here, you're going to get all of them right. Just do the white notes only. And we'll come back to that in a minute. I'm going to let you turn your tape off when we've finished reviewing this, and let you take the test, and then come back and I'll give you the answers. Define an interval. How many degrees of the scale are there? You remember what we talked about on degrees of the scale? If you need to study that, look back on lesson 1. Name the degrees of the scale. Each one has a technical name, but I only gave you technical names for the first and last. The others are just number names. Define a scale. And if I ask you to define a scale, you wouldn't define a chord, would you? So be sure you know what a scale is. And you can say it in your own words. It doesn't have to be just like it's in the book, as long as it means the same thing. All right, number 6. The first note of the scale is called the blank. And then here's one that might need some defining. What method do you use to play a scale you don't know? Well, I believe we covered that in Lesson 1. You might have to rewind the tape and find that out to take this test. But I want you to get the answers right so that you'll have them on here and then study this. So define a half step and a whole step. And where are the half steps located in a major scale? You're never, ever, ever, ever going to forget that. I know you won't. Number 10, what is the 5th degree of the C scale? This is making a lot more sense to you now than it did when you first heard Lesson 1. Number 11, what does a sharp do to a note? What does a flat do to a note? And what intervals do you look for? What intervals do you play for a chord? And number 4, describe an octave. That's pretty easy. Okay, turn the tape off now and take the test, and then come back in just a minute. We'll go through the test and get the right answers, and I want you to grade your own test and see how you did and correct it, and that way you'll have something to study. All right? Was that pretty easy? Okay. Let's go to the test and see how you did. Let me get over here to mine. All right. If you started on the first, number 1, if you started naming the notes, the very first one, if you said F there, you probably got them all right, because this is F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, and so on and so forth. So if you started right, you probably got them all right. Number 2, define an interval. What is an interval? It's the distance between two tones, or how far is it from one note to another. So you need to write that on your paper if you got it wrong. I trust you didn't. Number 3, how many degrees of the scale are there? There's 8 degrees of the scale. Number 4, name the degrees of the scale. The first degree of the scale is called the tonic. Seconds, thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, sevenths, and octaves. That's the names of the degrees of the scale. Define a scale. Well, you could say it any way you want to in your own words if it means this. It's a series of intervals within an octave made up of half steps and whole steps. A series of intervals within an octave. Do you see a picture of that as we say that? A series of intervals within an octave made up of half steps and whole steps. All right. The first note of the scale, number 6, the first note of the scale is called the tonic, of course. Number 7, what method do you use to play a scale that you don't know? This one may have tripped you up because you really need to memorize, or I don't mean memorize, I mean you really need to remember this, that those half steps and whole steps is what makes your scale. So to play a scale you don't know, you go whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. In other words, the half steps go between 3 and 4 and 7 and 8. All the others are whole steps. So what method do you use? I would call that the half step, whole step method. Number 8, define a half step that's absolutely no key between. Define a whole step that's one key only between. Sometimes when people are doing these scales in our seminars, they'll try to skip 2 notes to make a whole step. That's a step and a half. So a whole step is just one key between, one note between. All right, number 9. Where are the half steps located in a major scale? I don't owe you that answer. You better know that one. Where are half steps located in a major scale? We all know between 3 and 4 and 7 and 8. Number 10, what's the 5th degree of the C scale? Well, how do you find that out? Just say C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Which one was 5? Just count on your fingers. So it's a G. C, D, E, F, G. That's up 5, isn't it? You always start at the bottom and go up. So number 11, what does a sharp do to a note? Raises it. You may have said that, but if you didn't say all this, write this down. We need to know how far it raises it. It raises it a half step. When you put a sharp on a note, that means play the next key to the right. What does a flat do to a note? It lowers it, but how far? A half step. Remember, a flat goes down and a sharp goes up. Just like a flat tire goes down, that's how you remember that. All right, number 13. What intervals do you play for a chord? You take the major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and pick out 1, 3, and 5 out of that, and you've got a chord. Number 14, describe an octave. Now, one girl in one of our seminars plays very well, and we asked her, we gave her this test. In fact, she's a professional pianist, and she thought for a minute, and I thought this was kind of funny, so I'm going to tell you about it. She said thumb to little finger, and that's kind of right. But describe an octave, it's 2 notes, not thumb to little finger. That could be anywhere, but that's the way she plays an octave, and that's the way I play an octave, so that made sense to her. But to describe an octave, it's 2 notes of the same name, 8 degrees apart, like C to C, or D to D, or E to E. All right? So I hope you did well on test number 1. All right, we'll go back now to learn to play in a new key. I want us to get a new song. We're not tired of When I See the Blood, but we've about worn it out. All right, if we can go back.